Good day to everybody on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, and thank you for joining us live if you're awake at this hour. If not, thank you for watching the broadcast. My name is Michael Wardy. I'm a certified financial planner and regional director at Source Advisors, where we are working with clients to increase cash flow through tax strategies, specialty tax strategies. And today I am incredibly excited to have Arthur Carp back in studio, virtual, to talk about what is going on with cybersecurity, giving updates on trends and all that good stuff. Knowledge is power. And I don't know, Arthur, if that's one of your slogans. It should be, because you do promote that every time we've talked. It's the first and foremost, it's making sure that people know what's going on. There's been a lot of recent attacks on the internet and on emails and computers and systems. And I wanted Arthur back in studio today to talk about what's going on and the changes, because every time I feel like with every company, every time you take two steps forward, somebody else is hacking in or figuring it out before you've even gotten to that second step. So before we go on, Arthur, thank you. Before I go on, I say thank you for joining.
My great pleasure. We actually have two other mottos that I'd like to share first.
Perfect.
The first one is call before you click. And that means if you have the slightest doubt about a link to visit a website, or worse, an attachment, and we're going to discuss those shortly, don't do it. Call somebody. Pick up that, I know it's last century and 2 centuries ago, pick up that instrument called a telephone, take that cell phone out of your pocket or off of your desk, and call to see if it's real or fake. And the other important little motto we have that I hope you'll enjoy is regarding passwords. And that motto is, strength is length. Length is strength. Excuse me. Length is strength. I haven't had enough coffee yet.
It is still early. That's okay.
But do not recycle passwords. In other words, not the same password everywhere. One of the things that we favor is, I for example, prefer Firefox, or it's okay with Chrome too. They have a feature that suggests a random password for you and then memorizes the login for you. Use randomized passwords. Do not try to memorize things. Let the machine do it for you, and then protect it with a master password. The point is that that's just a simple thing. That's not really the basis of today's discussion. Mm-hmm. Just an offshoot of length is strength with regard to passwords.
So go ahead, and then I have a question already.
What I want to discuss are the latest trends in attack. You see, we are in the middle of a war. No, you don't hear bullets overhead or anti-aircraft fire. The bullets are all packets on the internet that find their way to your local network and then eventually to your phone or PC or tablet or TV even. But the point is, it is a war. We are playing defense for the most part, and defense always lags offense, meaning we're always playing catch up. And what's happened, instead of being 2 steps behind these days, we're 4 or 5. The spread is widened in favor of the attackers. Now, I wanted to give you a specific example of the latest trend in phishing emails. Phishing is by far and away the most common attack vector, because everybody has it, everybody uses it, everybody lives and dies by it. If you don't believe that, just try not checking your email for 24 hours and see what sort of withdrawal symptoms you suffer from.
I'm guilty of that. I think we all are.
We all are. We all are. We're all addicts, and this is like Alcoholics Anonymous, I think, even though I'm not a member, where it's okay to confess your addiction. Now,
Thank you.
Coming back to the issue. Everybody's email client, the software you view the email with, whether it's something standalone like Outlook or Thunderbird or integrated like Gmail, shows you who it's from. But they show it to you in what we call HTML. They show it prettified, beautified. It doesn't show you under what we call under the hood, what the actual email address is.
Right.
It'll show you that's from John Smith at ABC Corp or something similar. So what came in for us, for one of our people, was QuickBooks at notification.intuit.
Okay.
That's where that's who claims to be the sender.
Right.
But actually, when we peel back the hood, lift up the hood, it's T_Katakura1004 at kcf.biglobe.ne.jp, which is Japan. Hint, that has nothing to do with intuit.com.
No.
Now, the thing is, every email client will let you look under the hood. You just have to figure out how. You can look at headers. And this is the first step. The first step is getting a better handle on understanding how to use your email software. So if something comes in that looks suspicious, you can, if you wish to, take a closer look yourself if you don't feel like immediately picking up the phone and calling. So that's number one. Now, the next part of this is, in addition to looking at the from, it's the body, the instructions.
Wait,
the way.
I have a question. How do you look to see who it's from?
What email client are you using? Each one is different. Some of them will say headers. Some of them will say raw.
Okay.
Now, I use a client called Pegasus Mail, which everything comes in as plain text. I've been using it for 30 years as it's evolved.
Okay.
Because originally plain text was shorter, smaller, and in the days of low bandwidth, keeping it short and small was very important. But also, I like it because I like to look first. I have been spearphished. I have been targeted by governments because of our business in cybersecurity,
right,
as well as some of my other people's. That should not be a surprise to our audience that governments would like back doors into cybersecurity products, not just those of Quantalytics, but of all of them, of course. But we, of course, we have no back doors, and we practice. Well, we're professional paranoids. One of our other mottos is trust nothing, verify everything.
Keeps you safe. Okay, go ahead.
Keeps us safe. Absolutely. It's a war.
Yeah.
And they're shooting. So the next thing is the body. Everybody has junk filters. Your email providers have junk filters, but stuff still slips through. The latest trend to help them get it to slip through is not necessarily an attachment. We'll come to that, or a link to click on in line. Instead, the body will say, "Please call. If you have a question, please call blah, 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 a phone number." And that will lead you back to an Indian call center and scammers who will attempt to browbeat you. That means hit you on the head metaphorically with your phone.
Yeah.
To get you to cooperate and pay the bill. And they favor this approach, especially with people north of 60, because an interesting psychological study I read is that you become more trusting as you become older. I represent a notable exception. But and also these people tend to be less technically sophisticated. And if they're retired, their retirement causes some people to let their guards down a bit. Part of the overall relaxation of a lifetime of the discipline of work.
Yeah.
Work is a form of a discipline. So this is especially prevalent tactic against 60s and ups to try to persuade you to call. The body of the email will say, thank you for your order, for your 3-year subscription to Norton or whatever for $899 and people 99 cents, and people will go, what? I didn't order that. That's outrageous. And the first thing they will do, if they're not careful, is they'll pick up the phone and call the number listed if you have a problem. So that's how these emails bypass the protections that are the current state of the art. So that's number one. So if it's a bill you don't recognize and a phone number, as they say in Brooklyn, which I'm not from, forget about it. It's a scam.
Yeah.
The second approach is the one where, yes, there's an attachment. And in this case, actually several other cases, the attachment will look like, if you don't look under the hood, a .html page. In other words, a web page or an HTML document. It's a different format instead of docx, a Word document.
Right.
And what they've done is they've actually disguised it. Looking under the hood, it's a piece of JavaScript, a piece of computer programming. If you click it, you launch it. And if you launch it, it's going to connect to what we call a command and control server that will then download and install for you in the background while you're sipping your coffee or tea, malware. It'll install a further backdoor that's called a RAT, remote application, and then start uploading anything of interest. It'll scan for QuickBook files, for example.
Right.
Those are always very interesting to criminally motivated hackers. And then comes the ransomware.
So they have access to your
they have better access than your own tech support people.
And your stuff.
And it's all automated simply by clicking on that attachment that you think is either a document, docx, or a .html, depending on how you see it labeled. But again, if you look under, you're not necessarily capable of looking under. It depends on your email package and your skill set and the time. The point is, don't click. Don't click. Call or delete. If it's really that important and involves serious money and you don't answer it, they'll come back to you with a different email. That's what people collecting money do. Well, they'll phone you. In other words, you'll know it's genuine if by ignoring it, it triggers another response. The odds are that it might be something serious, for real, rather than a fraud.
Right. So let me ask you this, and this is something that a friend of mine talked about doing, because we were talking about this topic of ransomware, and they have everything in the cloud, and they have
doesn't help.
Okay.
Doesn't help because they may say they have everything, but everybody has a My Documents folder jam-packed with stuff that they've saved.
Right. But if it's something, so I think we all do this. We have documents from like 6-7 years ago that just saved that we forgot about, and more than likely we don't need. So if my computer gets hacked or there's a ransomware that comes in, can I just say, you know what? I don't even want the computer anymore. It's old. I'm getting a new one. Everything is in the cloud. I don't care. And throw that computer out and get a new one.
But you do care, because before they go and do anything else, they're also taking screenshots, capturing keystrokes, and getting every single one of your logins.
Oh, man.
To that safe cloud. But you're handing them the welcome mat and the keys. You're being really nice.
So going back to what you were saying.
So no, cloud's no panacea. Is no panacea once you've been invaded. And it's an invasion. It's a war. You're violated. So coming back to this, if it's for real and you've deleted it, you'll hear back from people who want money. That's a given. That's a given. What we just witnessed here is a second follow-up email identical to the first one I just discussed with you, because we didn't answer the first one. So they're knocking on the door again.
Persistent
because it doesn't cost them anything. There's no cost essentially to sending out bulk emails. especially if they've taken over someone else's PC and have them and their email account doing the heavy lifting in the background. So, in other words, your PC can also become a spam server unknowns to you. There's all sorts of nasties that can be done. But the primary purpose of taking them over is identity theft, is getting your credentials, logging into your bank account, adding a new payee, and then sending that payee a wire. And then you, of course, get an email from the bank later saying, you've just had a wire transfer for X thousands of dollars. And by the time you have a chance to react, that money is already gone.
Yeah.
Unrecoverable. So this is why no panacea and why you got to be careful. Now, the next social engineering behavior is imitating, say, the CEO of a company in an email saying, I have an emergency, please wire X dollars to Joe Schmo in Transylvania. No offense to anybody from Transylvania.
I'm not from there, but I'm speaking on behalf of Transylvanians.
Yes. Krapakistan, to use Austin Powers. There. No offense. No, there's no one to offend in Krapakistan. So these, most employees, when somebody several layers up says jump, they simply jump and then ask, how high, sir or madam? And this form of social engineering using forged email is a rapidly growing area of crime. Now, how do they forge emails? You can forge one, just like I showed you. And if you don't look under the hood, you won't know that it's for real. Another source of forged emails is if a workstation is compromised on a network that has internal email and external email. For example, yours will say internal only or external only. For added security, they have, in essence, two different email systems. Well, once you've taken over somebody else's system, you can, under their hood, send all the internal emails you want so that they look and are genuine. Meaning they're looking under the hood, says they really are from within my organization.
So wait a minute.
They can forge who it's from, but use the internal email system so that you're getting an email that looks like it is from the boss saying, we have an emergency, send $25,000 to Joe Schmo in Krapakistan. Thank you.
And if you send it to the right person in accounts payable, they don't think twice about it. They're like, hey, it came from the CEO. I need to do what they said. I'm not going to question.
And it says internal email, right? And it says internal email. I am going to do first and question later.
Wow.
If I question at all.
Is this a new thing that they?
It's in the last year. It has emerged as the biggest problem in phishing. Over $1 billion has flown out the door, according to the FBI. According to the FBI stats, because people then call the FBI to try to get their money back.
Of course.
So therefore, the FBI tracks these cases and publishes statistics on them, which I, amongst many other people, read.
That's shocking.
Yes. So there's a protection against it too. There are protections against this.
Okay, so let's walk through those.
All right. First of all, if you don't have internal and external email, if you have external only, like most small and medium-sized businesses, there is something called digitally signing an email, which you can add. It involves a little work, and you'll have to probably speak to your computer people. But a digitally signed email is one where it authenticates, makes sure that it really is, if you'll forgive me, kosher, that it's really from who it says it is. So digitally signing is a guarantee of authenticity. It isn't a guarantee that the account was not compromised and someone else has taken it over for a drive.
Yeah.
But at least you know that it is an authentic email. And if it's for a suspicious behavior, meaning a wire request out of the blue to somebody you'd never heard of before, Joe Schmo in Krapakistan, it at least should cause you to sit up and say, I better double check before I send the money. So that's number one. the use of digitally signing. The second one is a bit more complex, unfortunately. I mean, with greater protection sometimes comes complexity, and that is to use encrypted email. Encrypted email means that you and the counterparty have public keys that you've swapped, and if they don't have your key, they can't send you an encrypted email. So therefore, if it's coming from outside or inside but not authorized, but nevertheless compromised, there's a difference between authorized and compromised.
Right.
So if it's coming from an inside compromised account that doesn't have your public key, then they cannot encrypt, which means they can't send you, if the policy is only use encrypted email for fund transfer requests or checks or whatever, primarily fund transfer. In other words, not mailing checks, but doing electronic fund transfers, whether it's from Zelle or your bank wire system or bill pay or whatever it should be electronic. Anything involving an electronic movement of money should be via an encrypted email request. And there are workarounds. One of them is using an encrypted PDF. I don't know if your viewers are aware that when you create a PDF, you can set up security controls in it as part of the creation process, right. Which means that you can put in a password so that only the real authorized viewer can open the PDF, which should be the fund request. In other words, if it comes in as just plain old email in plain text, bolded in red, the odds are it's a fake. If your policy is fund requests can only be sent via an encrypted PDF or an encrypted email. Encrypted PDF is probably better simply because PDFs are universal. Everybody has a software, mostly Adobe Acrobat, and it will let you create. Likewise, Windows 10 has built in a PDF printer. If you take a look at your printers, you'll see PDF, and it will let you choose what sort of protections to add. The default is nothing. In other words, you can do what you want.
Right.
With the PDF, the recipient can. But you, the sender, have the option of setting up a password, and then you can just use a fresh one each time and text it to the other side as an additional protection. Two-factor authentication is what we call it. And this way you guard against somebody who is well-intentioned on staff fulfilling an urgent request from a boss. And this is how you beat it, by altering your policies and procedures so that it's not quite business as in last century. You add this little bit of complexity, but on the other hand, you add a humongous amount of insurance. One of my favorite sayings.
I'm jotting down notes. Arthur, I'm jotting down notes because
that's fine. That's fine.
One of my people that are not aware of this, and this is available obviously on LinkedIn. It's on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, and I'm going to send this, and it'll be on our podcast as well. I just feel like this is such powerful information. I just want.
Well, let me ask: when you send a funds request on behalf of a client, how is it going out? Probably via an encrypted website. In other words, HTTPS, but nothing else. No two-factor. No way to double check. Does anybody ever call you back and say, Michael, is this for real or is it fake? Or as we used to say in the 20th century, is it Memorex?
I know we've done quite a bit of upgrades over the past several years in making sure that from our company standpoint that we're protecting ourselves and our clients. Again, you do as much as you can.
Right. So, and when you get a request from a client, are they sending you an encrypted PDF? Maybe you should encourage them to do that, especially if it's a large sum of money, whatever you decide the cutoff is.
Right. And what I've been doing is when I get an email that, like you said earlier this in the broadcast, if I get an email I'm not expecting it, I call.
Well, that's because you've been raised to a suitable level of paranoia. But unfortunately, our human natures are trusting, especially if we know we think we know the counterparty. We think it's the counterparty we know and like, or even if we dislike. But the point is, we think we know the counterparty. This is to guard against being defrauded.
Yeah.
Somebody assuming an identity.
It's so true. So let me ask you this, and I know we're at the bottom of the hour, and normally I try and keep the broadcast to 20 to 30 minutes. This is just so important that we can go on. So we're going to do another one, Arthur. I hope that's okay with you.
I would be delighted.
So I know that on Outlook, because I use Outlook, I can hover over the email and I can see who it's from. On my phone, because I use an iPhone, what if I open up one of those emails on purpose?
Well, Apple has a lot of protection, but there are limits. Don't push your luck. So don't look at if you don't have the ability to closely scrutinize, as I keep saying, under the hood on an iPhone. Wrong tool. Wrong tool. In other words, got to use the right tool for the job. I can pound a nail in with a screwdriver. Boy, it'll be a lot of effort. On the other hand, with my 20-ounce hammer, 2 whacks, and the nail goes in very nicely. So your iPhone is the screwdriver trying to pound the hammer, the nail.
Yeah.
And your PC is the proper tool in Outlook to look under the hood. If you cannot do the equivalent, if you can't do functionally the same thing. I'm not an iPhone user. I'm an Android user, and I barely use it. So
I live off of mine. So when I look at, I would ask, is there an app for it? I'm sure there's.
I don't know. I'm not well enough versed in the Apple infrastructure other than saying there's an app for everything.
Yeah, exactly. If there's not just me saying this, there probably someone's building it right now. So
there's one other item I want to quickly bring up.
Yes, please.
And that is the other latest trend is insider threats. In other words, your employees love them and hate them. But in particular, scams. And what I'm going to do right now is send a link to an article by Brian Krebs, who is one of the leading cybersecurity journalists in the world, forget about the US, discussing the latest scam, which they attempted to victimize him, which was a dreadful mistake. And it turns out it's another one of these Nigerian scams. And I recommend, I just sent it via private chat, I think to everybody, I earnestly recommend you read this. And with the view of changing your IT, if you haven't, to reduce privileges to the least necessary for each person. Typically, most people are given administrative rights over their PC so that they can install whatever they want willy-nilly. Bad approach. They should have 2 accounts, one with limited abilities and one, if they need to self-administer, an administrative account. And they should be using one with limited capabilities so that other people can't, if they get in. The job becomes much harder to mess around with the PC under the hood. I'm willing to bet you that you have administrative ability over your own PC. You get to install willy-nilly whatever you want. They can't hear you. They can only see you sadly nod yes. I don't mean to pick on you, Michael, but no, you're typical for what we call a knowledge worker. You work with information all day.
Yeah.
So yours is a typical setup, and it's a very bad idea.
So what do you
provide? You have a user account, one with user privileges. We can reserve this for a further conversation, a little more deeper look on how to properly structure a PC for an employee so that you are less vulnerable to an insider threat.
And you said that this is becoming more popular.
This particular hacking attempt was socially engineered. They offered an employee $1 million bonus if they would please deploy the following ransomware.
Wow.
A bribe.
Unreal.
You're nodding no.
Unreal.
There are no depths to human bad behavior.
I mean, yeah.
There's no bottom. And as I said, we're always running behind. So properly structuring PCs to restrict them and their users' abilities to do things, or if they're trusted, at least make it difficult for other people if the PC is compromised to do things, is a good defensive strategy that we'll explore later. And I just want to, before we conclude with maybe questions and answers, there's one other favorite saying of mine, and it was composed by Ben Franklin over 250 years ago, and it is, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
It's true back then. It is so true now. It is so true in every way, shape, and form. It's unreal.
Yes. And these are all low-tech ways to protect yourself. You don't have to worry about the glitter and glitz of the solutions, because unless you build your house out of concrete, the foundation, if you're built on sand, it doesn't matter what you put on top of it. The house will fall with a foundation made of sand.
Very wise. Very wise.
Thank you.
All right, Arthur, I'm going to thank you again. This information is unbelievable, and we definitely are going to get something on the calendar to do a follow-up one again, because unfortunately there's going to be more to talk about.
Yes, this is a war. This is a war.
Yeah. And like you said, information is that's our first step. If anybody has additional questions, thoughts, would like to talk with you further about protecting their company, I put your email address down below. And when we post this on our podcast, I'll include all your contact information there as well. So
people are always welcome to inquire. My pleasure to try to keep us all safe.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Very good. And thank you, everybody, for watching, for listening. And please share this with anybody and everybody, because the more we know and the more we stay in front of this, the better we all are. So enjoy the rest of your day, Arthur. And for our audience, thank you again, and enjoy your day. Take care.
Take care. Bye.